Yeah, it's got it all. It's got it for like the people that just want to see like a murder mystery.
Mm.
It's got it for the people who want to dive deep into like psychological thriller, the fallibility of man's uh, chase for like catching criminals and stuff. It's got it all. So it's really a great film. I think
All right.
it's a classic. Hey, welcome to the Tabs and Tash YouTube channel. Tashi here, and with my co-host,
Tabs. Hello.
hey Tabs.
Hi.
So we're gonna do a movie review on Memories of Murder, the new
Yeah.
Bong. I mean, the not new, the old Bong Joon-ho film. Uh, Tabs, it's your first time seeing the film, right?
Yeah.
And this is like my second or third time watching, but I haven't seen it since it like came out a while ago. So like a lot of this was fresh for me.
Mm.
Um, for the viewers that haven't seen the film, it's basically a Korean thriller murder mystery film. Takes place in like the 1980s in a rural area of South Korea, where two detectives who are just kind of like countryside detectives take on a murder
Yeah.
mystery. I mean, a murder investigation that kind of becomes something much bigger. The director is Bong Joon-ho, pretty much the most almost celebrated Korean
Korean
director
director. Yeah.
ever now, who most of you might know from directing Parasite,
Mm.
but also doing tons of like films, Snowpiercer, Okja,
Yeah.
and
Okja.
he's definitely one of the Korean cinema masters. I guess we're gonna just start off with like the beginning of the film, which begins with Songkang Ho walking through the countryside and coming upon the first murder that they've recognized.
Yeah.
You remember that scene?
Yeah. I remember. It's. I mean, it's right at the beginning, right in this huge field where it's all pretty much it's all yellow. It's really amazing. It makes you feel like you're coming into a movie where it's all happy and joyful, and you see kids running around playing, and there's this detective coming. It's like, hey, get out of the way. And next thing you
Mm,
see, he goes to see a gutter, right?
yeah,
And then there's a dead body in there. But there's this kid who is out there like mimicking him, like pretty much doing everything he does, saying what he
yeah. That's
says,
what like
and
Bong Joon-ho is really good at with like introducing his films. I think
hmm,
is just introducing dark, that dark humor that's like on the surface of like everything.
yeah,
So when you do like recognize that it's a detective finding a dead body,
yeah,
but you recognize the kids are all playing and everything like that, you just already feel kind of eerie.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, so that's like the beginning of the mystery, and it's
yeah.
also the introduction of Song Kang-ho, like one of Korea's best actors.
Dude, he was so good
Um,
in this movie, and
Dude, he's so good.
he's such a comedic relief person. Like he can be
Yeah,
serious, and then he seems like someone doesn't take himself so seriously. And and the
yeah.
supporting cast he had were amazing too. Everyone played their roles perfectly well.
The physical humor is hilarious,
Yeah,
especially Song Kang-ho. He's like so good at it, just like the way he carries himself,
yeah.
and
Oh, I
um,
want to say like sorry. Remember when he's typing like all the suspects and like
yeah,
he's using a typewriter?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and he's like doesn't know what to do to like move the road so like, it continues typing and the suspect is there just taps it for him
fixes it
and
for
he
him.
and he takes a
Yeah,
cigarette and looks at him and it's like yeah, so you know what you're doing, eh? Just so yeah, the physical comedic relief you get from it is pretty good. Yeah, I felt like I should mention that.
yeah, and it all lends into like setting up like these detectives in this like countryside as like they're not the good guys really. They're kind of seedy the way they
Yeah,
do things. Even like the first like suspect they find, um, they have like a perfect footprint that gets like run over by a
tractor.
tractor, and then they pretty much use his shoe to try to frame
Even
him.
when, like you
Yeah,
said, when they're interrogating the first suspect, with from the main case, and his partner comes in and he's like, "Oh yeah, that guy's a nice guy," and all that, and he just comes in with a flying kick, kicks not a flying kick, but a standing kick, just kicks the guy. It's like, wait, what's happening here? Are they the good
yeah.
guys or bad guys? Yeah,
Oh my gosh, and the second detective that's his partner is like kind of
yeah,
the violent kind of
yeah.
guy that
You could say he's bad.
he's, yeah,
Yeah.
they're both pretty bad if you
You think he's
actually
bad?
like
Nah,
step back from it.
You think so?
Because dude, they're trying to pretty much frame innocent people and put them in jail for a
No.
crime they didn't commit. As cool
I,
as Songkang Ho is,
but
he's still
but I never felt like they were actually gonna get in prison because you could just see like was so lousy what they were doing. You know, the whole time where they have the picture and they all stand on the stairs that when they think they have solved the case, and it's like, come on, man, these guys are for sure they're not going to get away with this. So I never felt threatened about it. It's just obviously his partner. You could just tell like, hey, dude, why are you just coming and kicking people in? But I don't think Kang-Ho's character was. I don't think you could really say if I mean personally me, I'm not going to put words in you, but I don't think I ever got the feeling that he was actually a really bad person. In my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's true as well. But it also goes to like, I think the countryside style of doing things, and this is all kind of like put into place when they have a detective from Seoul, like the big city, come into the countryside, and this is when the two different detectives really start kind of seeing their inadequacies in like each other's different approaches.
I think
but
that sorry to interrupt you, but I think that was a really big sin because I think that's when the director shows you the difference between a professional cop or detective and one who's kind of lousy and doesn't know what the hell is doing, and you're like, oh, so this is how you're supposed to interrogate people and actually think and go through the evidence. You know, there's a scene where he's presenting his things, and that's Kang-Ho's character presenting the details to the director. And he's like going through it. He doesn't even know what's happening. He's like, oh, they found semen? Oh, yeah. He's like, they found semen. He's like, aren't you supposed to read this? Yeah, he's flipping through the page. Yeah, and I'm like, okay, what's happening? And then you get the other guy who goes through the evidence. It's like, this guy tends to attack people when it's raining and they wear red dresses and all this stuff. And he's like, no, give me so-and-so people and boom, boom, I'll find the next body. And you're like, oh, okay, now there's a difference. So, yeah.
And then when he does find that body, it's just like Songkang Ho's character kind of like this becomes really jealous and not cohesive to like finding the murderer at all. They kind of butt heads. But it's like the different approaches are like played very early. Like when the other detective comes and he's like, "Yeah, it's the documents never lie."
Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember that statement.
And he always repeats that. Songkang Ho's approach is pretty much like, "Yo, if I look into his eyes." I think I could tell who's like the real bad guy. And it's like almost, it's the least scientific approach at all. And then throughout all this, like between the detectives themselves, there's just great interplay of showing like bits and pieces of the actual crimes and showcasing like the killer without actually showing him.
For a bit of the movie.
There's some like thrilling kind of scenes, especially throughout the film when they're just like showing the camera following the different women in the film, and you're just like getting this like, you know, if something's gonna happen.
I remember the scene, the one that I think she didn't escape. I mean, they're all raining, but there was one where she was walking and singing to the sad letter song, and the guy too, the criminal or wherever was in the, I don't know, what do you call those grass? Is it shrubs or something?
Yeah, he's like in the
little fields or something.
Crops in the field.
And does the camera walk where you're like, okay, where is he gonna come out from? Is he gonna jump from the field? Is he gonna be right behind her? And she starts running, and boom, he's right in front of her and just grabs her.
Yeah,
it's like, wow.
The editing on that is amazing, isn't it? Because like they follow her like face, and then like she drops like the light, and she's just running.
Yeah,
and everything's moving so fast, and then like the camera's moving, and then they cut him like just coming through the, like into the screen, like at you pretty much. Yeah. And it's just like, I remember that scene, but I didn't remember it. And I was like, I was like spooked again. I was like,
yeah, no, that was a bit spooky. But I wanted to give the person who plays Kang-Ho, that's the would you say mentally challenged person who has like some burnt scars on him. And I'm like, man, he really played that character really well, you know. I remember the scene where they're interrogating him, or even after the interrogation where they're just eating. They find out that, okay, they messed up, or they're trying to get him to cooperate to them. They just entice you, give you food and all, and they're like, yeah, you did it, right? This is what you did. This is what you did. And he's just out there playing. He portrayed the character really well. The scene of him eating the chicken, I'm like, wait, is this guy really? You actually think he's mentally not there, but that's a normal person playing that, and I'm like, wow, he definitely
Right.
deserves his flowers, and and the point of me bringing him up is to give him his flowers, and also to show how sorry, Kang-Ho's character is, even though he's all over the place, he kind of still has an eye for things. You know, he
Yeah.
interrogates the people, but he just does not put the pauses together. You know, even the idea
Hmm.
of going to a Sherman and saying, "Oh, let's try and get the face of the criminal." You know, and they go to the one of the burial sites or one of the crime scenes, I should say, and he gets
Hmm.
the mud, and it's like, tomorrow we'll see the face, and boom, someone
In the
comes. Yeah, in the paper, someone comes, but it's not the person per se, but it kind of leads them to where that the main person works, kind of, right?
yeah, Kang-Ho is great. And it's just there's so many funny scenes with him
Yeah.
that it's almost like it's tragic what really what happens to him later on in the film. Especially when they give him like the the shoes, the
Oh,
Nikes,
nice,
but
nice
then,
shoes.
but then the NICEs, and you see him wearing them
He's so
later on in the
happy
film.
about it too.
Yeah,
Oh man,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. They really make it quite eerie too. You know, especially, I mean, especially when they like chase him to try and, because they're like that they're putting things together and they're like, oh, we're about to get it right, we're about to get
yeah,
suspect, and apparently he was the one that saw the criminal, right? And
yeah.
then
He actually saw the criminal's
yeah,
face. Yeah,
and eventually climbs on top of a pole, and they chase him again. Then they get him, show him the picture, and he's like, it's like it's like hot. It was hot. It's hot. It's hot, or something like that. But then he runs and gets to the train station. Then I mean, for me, that's when I noticed the shoes again. When he was on the pole and when he was on the
yeah,
sorry on the track rails, and he's like, even that moment, he's like, go, 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 go.
yeah.
Do you think the whistle was for him to protect himself, or whistle to like the director's trying to get you to have the feeling of like the train scene? You know, the trains have the whoop, whoop, what do you call those things?
Yeah.
I don't know what you
So
call it.
I think it was both maybe. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's for him, but also could be like that too.
like foreshadowing what was happening. Like,
Yeah, that's another thing about this film. Watching it for the second time is like how much like thought and planning must have went into making this film, because there's so much recurring themes and setups.
mm,
Like, they run through certain areas of the film multiple times,
yeah,
and one of the biggest ones is like the the underground train, like that they go to at the end of the movie.
yeah,
You see them walk by it like at least two or three times throughout the
yeah.
film, like the actual detectives. Yeah, so like rewatching it, I
When?
keep seeing that, and I'm just like, that's where it's all coming to in the
Oh,
end.
oh yeah, oh yeah. Oh, when I think
Yeah,
about it now.
and they bring
Hmm.
things back, even with the Kwang Ho thing when he does describe the the murder in such
Yeah,
detail.
yeah.
Which already like, oh, they must have rehearsed it with him. But then later on, they were like, no, he just like knew that, and
Knew it.
then so it's a really thrilling kind of movie with like continuous twists and turns
Hmm.
that even rewatching it, there's always something to like kind of
Yeah.
catch.
One thing when you say about well produced and written, like if when as you go along the movie, it feels like things are coming together. You know, the bad cop gets his own camera. He has to amputate his leg, and you're like,
Yeah,
okay, things are coming. Everyone's getting their justice, and they're getting closer. It's unfair that Kang-Ho character dies, but you're like, we're about to get. Well, we found the guy. Pretty much, he has soft hands, and it's doing all that stuff, and they. Uh, something then that brings everything back to reality and kicks you pretty much in the nuts, if I'm allowed to say that,
yeah,
is the kid. He helps a kid with the bandage. Remember when he goes to school to find the lady in the hill,
yeah.
and then he helps a little kid that has like a scratch on her back. Then eventually, she ends up being, at least in the movie, the last victim we see, and
Hmm.
it's just so catastrophic. It's like, wow, everything was coming along. I thought I was already the main major bad scene with Kwan Ho dying was like, okay, at least that's one. But boom, there's another one where the kid is, because then he kind of puts you in the place where there are two women, right? The
Hmm.
woman that likes Kang-Ho character,
Songkang
so
Ho's
yeah,
character, and
yeah,
then the one that's for the
for
detectives, like
detective, and you're
friend.
like, oh, what's gonna happen here? What's gonna happen here? And boom, unfortunately, he picks the little kid, and I think that's where it breaks the soul detective, and everyone's like, okay, what are we gonna do here? Because it's pretty deflating. I mean, it's deflating for all the women, but for a kid, it's like, oh man, what is gonna happen? I think that's where they all go out of characters, and funny enough, Song's character is the one who kind of becomes the reasonable person.
Yeah, and I think both those moments that you mentioned are like, one is like the ultimate like sobering moment for Songkang Ho's character.
Mm,
Sees Kang-HO die, and like the blood's on him, and it's like
yeah.
as literal as like, yo, the blood's on your hands. You're the one that like
Oh, dude, that's
put him through all that
smart.
torture and scared him so much that like, if they didn't torture the dude, he would have never ran. They probably would have been able to
Yeah,
talk
dude,
to him
that
and
is
identify the
smart. I didn't
actual
pick that up. Yeah,
criminal.
that's a good
But
statement. The blood's on you. The blood's on you. So
yeah,
that's good.
and then they show like the close up of his face, and he's just like,
Yeah.
he knows like, yo, this is, and everything kind of happens to him. Like,
I
right, like
do.
his partner
Yeah.
gets his leg amputated, and it's funny enough, like, because he always puts on the shoe on his
Yeah,
leg,
that like.
he uses to like beat up
Yeah.
people with.
Yeah.
So he's like completely sobered now, and he's like, I can't be like this renegade kind of cop. I can't. Like the things I've been
Yeah.
doing have pretty much like hurt
Help
everyone.
people. Yeah.
And then the other cop, another detective, is pretty much like I'm sick of like waiting for documents and like things to line up.
Mm.
I'm gonna like try and get justice on my own.
Mm.
So they kind of shift positions.
Yeah.
By the end of the film, they have like one prime suspect, and they're just waiting for like DNA results to like catch him.
Mm.
But by this point, the detective from Seoul is so like distraught with like anger and vengeance that he goes after him personally.
Yeah. Like gets him
And
from I think from his home,
yeah,
right? And brings him all the
yeah,
way to the crime, pretty much almost like a crime scene area.
yeah, pretty much a place where no one can find them.
Yeah, and the
And he
train
just starts beating
beating
him up
him. Yeah.
and trying to get a confession, the way that like Song Kang Ho was doing previously, and like the
Yeah.
guy was not giving in. And then only Song Kang Ho coming back with the actual DNA results could really stop him, but not really stop him.
Yeah.
Because when you find like you've lost everything,
Mm.
this is like the darkest part I find, when like the guy was running away and he actually like shoots at him
Yeah.
in the tunnel. So he like went for the
You
kill. He was
wanted to
like
kill him. Yeah.
ready, and they have a just cheeky kind of moment where you see him on the ground, and then he actually just tripped.
Yeah.
So yeah, very powerful kind of stuff when you try and go into like the depths of what's going into the minds of the detectives who are just trying to solve a case.
Yeah.
So like any kind of, I think that's one of the big themes of the film, is just like, these kind of terrible actions. Like you can't justify terrible things it's still just like an endless cycle. It's pretty bad. Okay. I wanted to mention, do you remember like the scene where they show the dead body? And then like they pan down to it, like a dead body on like the gurney, and then it cuts to them in like the meat shop
pouring meat on it. Yeah. Yeah, you want to talk about it? I mean, we can. I
was like, Bong Joon-ho, you cheeky bastard! It's such a visceral kind of like thing, because like you literally go from seeing like a dead girl to like just them eating, and that's like a staple that they always use in like these Korean thrillers. Like, do that edit where it's just like
right in their face, right in your face, and you're like, what? Yeah, I remember. And and it's not even the kind where you put just the meat on the plate. It's like with the blood and everything,
right? And they're just eating.
Yeah, and the color saturation, that's something you notice. Like when certain things he makes to be bright, like the blood and the bread meat was really red and bright, because the whole movie is kind of like, even it's not like it's not really colorful per se. It's like has like a little dark theme to it, apart from like the ending where everything's quite bright. After like years have passed, right? 2003, he has his family. He's doing this. He's a salesman, pretty much, I think.
Yeah.
And then he goes back to the field accidentally, maybe.
And he just like notices it.
Yeah,
right?
it's like yeah. And there's this girl there. He's like looking into the gutter, and this girl comes like, oh, so weird. Someone else too was here before. And he's like, oh, he's all in shock. And he's like, what did, like, do you remember the face? He's like, yeah. It's like, how does it look like? It's like he's quite plain and ordinary. And I don't know
Yeah.
why does that, maybe you can explain to me, but why does that hit him more? I think he was more emotional there than when Kang-HO even died, because he just looks straight into the camera and it's like tearing up. Do you have an, I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm putting you on the spot, but like, do you know why?
My main thing was it's like the ultimate regret. You know that guy's still out there,
Hmm.
and you still can't
Oh,
catch him really, right? And the way he just like the music comes in and
yeah,
he like looks straight into the camera and he's just like looking through the camera.
yeah,
It's just it almost like it wants to bring you back again, those
yeah,
memories, right?
yeah,
And like it's tough because you can't go back. You can't change the things
yeah.
that happen. Like, yeah, could you imagine being a detective,
Mm,
going back to a crime scene that you never saw, and
yeah.
then just having some kid be like, "Yeah, the criminal
Yes.
was here like a week ago. Like he was just there.
Yeah,
You're staying in the same spot."
yeah.
And
Oh
it's
my God,
like
that's sad. That's pretty sad.
that would destroy you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, when you put it that way,
The
it's
one
really.
funny thing is like
Mm,
the one guy that is not the he's obviously the DNA test comes back negative and he's not the person,
yeah.
but the way that they like latch onto him and like try and like twist him into the person, it's like
You don't think he's? I think he was the one. Still, as much as I
maybe
mean, if you remember, there's a
oh
scene where they go into his room, right? And they're going
mhm,
through his pictures, and there's a picture of him on the tree. Like he did a like there's a quick pic on the. There's a quick picture that show
oh
him on the tree, like hanging on the tree. And I'm like, okay, what's happening here? Like,
yeah,
and
that's true.
maybe because it's a true story, or it's a true
Yeah,
case that happened. Maybe they did feel like like it's like the Zodiac thing where they felt like they had the guy, but they couldn't
yeah,
really pin it on him because it was just
yeah,
enough. But like they just knew it was him, But he could
yeah,
just wiggle out because of how the legal system is. So I think it's the same case with this person where they kind of point like we had the guy, but god damn it, we can't. There's not sufficient enough evidence to pin him down.
yeah,
I think in conclusion to everything we've said, I think I'll give a movie a solid 8 out of 10, in my personal
yeah,
opinion. Yeah, I think even with you explaining all that to me and looking at it, it's a movie that it ages like wine. I mean, not like it gets better, but it's just great for how it's made. You can watch it anytime and you still enjoy it. It's slow. Maybe it's sometimes a bit too slow paced, but it's comical. It's serious. It's suspense, mystery, a bit of action sometimes with the flying kicks. So just all of that. When I'm thinking about it's a movie that I can rewatch and enjoy, 100%
yeah.
out there. That's why I'm giving it 8 out of 10. Amazing directing, amazing director.
Hmm.
Yeah, you?
Yeah, I'm gonna give it like a 9 out of 10,
Wow, that I think
and it's
that's
like
up there for you, man. It's up
yeah,
there.
it is. It's like I can't believe how much I enjoyed it watching it again.
Again, yeah, it's really good.
Um, it's an absolute like banger, and
Yeah.
the directing is amazing for like being like the second film by Bong Joon-ho's, like his
Mm-hmm.
second feature film.
Mm.
Is just amazing. The performance by Songkang Ho is like
Top tier, man.
unreal. Like
Yeah.
the way he carries the film in like some points, and he's just so funny at times too. Like when the one detective comes from the other country and he's like walking behind the girl trying to get directions,
Yeah.
and like Song Kang Ho jumps out
Flying
and does like
kick.
a drop kick on him,
Yeah.
and he's like, "What is up with this country? Or what is up with this town?" It's like it's a great film. It's
Mm.
like such a great Korean classic, and I think it's gonna be like something people watch forever.
No, for sure.
Um, and it's just yeah, Bong Joon Ho's awesome, and the way that it's awesome seeing that again and watching his like stratospheric rise to like fame now with
Mm.
Parasite. That it's just like it feels like he's still the same guy, and that's what I love about him so much. Yeah, definitely a 9 out of 10. Recommended to everyone. Check it out. Even like yeah, it's got it all. It's got it for like the people that just want to see like a murder mystery.
Mm.
It's got it for the people who want to dive deep into like psychological thriller, the fallibility of man's uh, chase for like catching criminals and stuff. It's got it all. So it's really a great film. I think
All right.
it's a classic.
So you heard our review on the movie. Make sure you check it out and take care, beautiful people. Peace. Bye.
That's it for another episode of the Tabs and Tash Podcast. Wow.